Am I in the frame here?
Yep.
Am I allowed to be here? Okay, hi. So hi everyone, I'm Dr. Cynthia Clark. I'm an acupuncture physician, I'm an applied clinical nutritionist, I'm the creator of Energy Evolution, and I'm the president of Longevity Wellness. And what we're going to be talking about tonight is the coronavirus and also your immune system and what that looks like for us. And I will confess that I do not usually give PowerPoint presentations, so my PowerPoint etiquette is going to be a little weak tonight. Please forgive me in advance. I'm going to do things like stand here and talk with my hands because I put this together because there's a lot of information that is floating around in the media right now, and there's a lot of information I needed to get to quickly, and so that's what PowerPoint is really good for. So the first thing I want to talk about is there's been a lot of media coverage about the coronavirus, and do I get, what did I do wrong?
You have to put it on, sure, you have to put it on slideshow.
You have a slideshow?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, do start.
Any key should work then.
I told you my etiquette, my PowerPoint etiquette was weak.
If it's on slideshow, just put the cursor there and hit the enter.
Ray, would you please? I will take this moment to tie my shoe, which I untied a moment ago when I was talking, so that's perfect timing for me. And first of all, I really appreciate all of you being here. I legitimately mean my gratitude for breaking the craziness that's being perpetrated out in the world about like, oh God, you're gonna die if you walk outside your door. But what we want to do is we want to really look at the facts and we want to look at the information. We want to do that in a way that is healthy and useful. So it wasn't just me.
Yes. They have to go with doing it this way.
So
Or you put it
tonight, we're going to be talking about, first and foremost, the environment in which you receive the information. So anytime we get information, we want to look at both ourselves and our natural predisposition, how we tend to hear information. The day after 9/11, everybody knows who Tony Robbins is, right? Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, the day after 9/11, Tony Robbins held a seminar, which was deeply moving. This was recorded and you can watch it, it's on Netflix, I believe, which was deeply moving and deeply touching. And what he brought to mind, what he brought to awareness was that each one of us, whatever our natural tendencies are, will be exponentially broadcast in the presence of extreme information, right? So the day after 9/11, people who tended to be angry were
Angry.
people who tended to be afraid were
More fearful.
people who tended to blame others tended to
Blame more people.
there you go. Yeah. So we all have these natural tendencies, and by the way, just a brief step into what we think of as our natural tendencies or what we think of as ourselves or our personalities are very often a mixture, or always a mixture of a conglomeration of the primordial soup of our genetics that we were brought into the world with, combined with our spirituality, our sense of rightness, and things like the pathogens that are residing inside of us, which make us experience certain things in certain ways. So for example, the pathogen Candida will tend to make us blame other people. It just has an energy of trying to separate us from other people and trying to push away other people. Well, you know what? I used to work in IT, and here's the thing that we always did when we didn't know what to do. That's what I'm doing.
It's like that first line was frozen.
Yeah, maybe that's what
So we're going to be aware that there's a lot of different aspects of what goes on when we receive this kind of information. We're going to be aware that we can also look at that objectively. And we can recognize that right now we're living in a situation where there's a significant amount of fear downloaded into our society around this. Like, for example, when the coronavirus is being reported on, what does it sound like? What are they saying on the news? How does it come? How do they say it?
Like it's
We're all
an
gonna
emergency.
Yeah, they say the deadly coronavirus.
Mm-hmm.
They say the first death has been reported.
Mm.
Okay, well, I hate to break it to you, but more people die in automobile accidents than die from the coronavirus. And we've been doing that for a long time. Way more people have died from the flu overall than they have from the coronavirus specifically. If somebody tells you the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, you're gonna tend to buy into that belief system. So one thing I would encourage you to do at this time is that choose the time at which you listen to the news. Don't listen to it first thing in the morning or last thing at night, because these are the time that our brain is in theta wave, and we are the most impressionable, and we are the easiest to influence. Also probably a good time to, hey, give me a round of applause.
That was tough.
You did it. Yes.
Need a nap.
So now I can work this in about rebooting our immune system.
Look at the brain sunshine. Good. Yeah, that is perfect. It is exactly what we're talking about tonight. So what we are going to be talking about is we're going to be talking about our immune system as a whole, and we're going to be talking about how the coronavirus shows up and affects us.
You said the alpha state is the morning?
Theta.
Theta.
Morning and evening. It's the right before you go to sleep and the right after you wake up, like that kind of dreamlike state, the state in which you're in when you can still remember your dreams. You know, where you just kind of chill. By the way, probably not the time to go Amazon shopping. So these are things that we just talked about. And so we're going to talk about precautions tonight. This is an excerpt from a letter that was sent out from the American Association of Energy Psychology, which is one of the organizations that has its annual conference coming up, and they have chosen not to cancel it.
Really?
Yes. And I know of so many conferences that are canceled. Chuck is actually the keynote speaker at his professional organization's conference that's taking place in May, and they've already canceled it because a state of emergency
Michigan.
was declared in Michigan. Right? Dr. Ernesto's daughter is visiting him on break, and she was just informed that their break, they are not going back to school for at least another week, and possibly the entire semester will be done online.
College or school?
College.
Yes. Most of the colleges are closing.
Most of the colleges are closing. And so let's just look at the facts. I'm an engineer. So let me just put it that I know that I have a bias towards objective information. I have a genetic predisposition to facts over sensationalism, which can really irritate people at times, because if they're trying to get a strong emotional response from me, I just kind of stare at them because I view that as emotional manipulation and I'm not interested in it. But that's just how I'm wired, right? So we're going to be talking tonight about the facts. Even before we get there, I want you to know that there's good news. For example, note that while Europe has had things like the Black Plague and Spanish influenza, China has never had an epidemic like that. The reason for that is because China has Chinese herbs, which is a very rich culture of support from the planet. That they started paying attention to their ecosystem and how they existed in it and what they might need. And just a brief introduction and differentiation between when I say Chinese herbs and Chinese herbal formulas versus Western herbs, what I'm talking about is less about the substance and where it is grown than it is about the paradigm in which it is prescribed. So for example, you're gonna see the prevention formula, the Chinese herbal prevention formula. This is what's being prescribed in the hospitals to all patients who have coronavirus. To patients in advance of coronavirus.
In China.
In China.
Yes.
And it's like, this is the country law. If you come in, if it is thought that you have this either coronavirus or flu, then you are given Chinese herbs in addition to Western medicine, or possibly just in replacement of Western medicine. The difference between these formulas and just taking an herb is the communication of the formula within itself. So for example, I'm going to talk to you about this in terms of food and cooking because you're going to get it, and then we'll apply it to the herbal formulas. So for example, if I said, I'm going to bake you a cake, and I've got, what do I need to make a cake? Eggs,
sugar,
flour, sugar, baking powder,
butter.
butter. Okay, I'm going to bake you a cake. So I start out by scrambling the eggs, and then I melt some butter, and then I take the flour and I put it in the oven, and I don't mix any of these things together. Am I gonna wind up with cake?
No.
Nope.
Am I gonna wind up with anything that you're gonna want to eat?
No.
No.
Baked flour.
Baked flour. Why?
You didn't do it right.
I didn't do it right.
Because the
No
ingredients
center-
themselves don't provide anything until they have the mechanisms. of
Well, they
the
do
other-
provide, like I can have my scrambled eggs.
There's no synergy.
Synergy.
There's synergy, right?
It's the synergy. It's the combination, it's the recreation of the molecular communication that takes place when we cook these things together, right? Think of your favorite marinara sauce, and if you cooked garlic, and then you cooked onion, and then you cooked tomatoes, and then you reduced some red wine, and then you added all of those things together, it still wouldn't taste like marinara sauce. It would taste like kind of weird and not very cohesive. Okay, so now you have an intuitive understanding of what synergistic molecules taste like. It is the same with Chinese herbal formulas. The reason that these herbs have to be cooked together is because new molecules are created when they are cooked all together. It is different than if you just cook them separately. Traditionally, Western herbal formulas are traditionally single herbs. And the reason for that is because, how old is our country?
250 years.
1776.
How old is China? They've had a leg up, they've figured a lot of things out, they've simply had more time. We're like the really baby younger sibling that, you know, like the older sibling is maybe grandpa age, and we're still at the very beginning of trying to learn how to walk. So that's why there's this difference. It's not about good or bad, and there's good things, it's just that there's a much more comprehensive approach. Okay, so the first thing that I want you to know, we're gonna get into this later on, we're gonna come back to it, but the first thing that I want you to know is the paradigm of differentiation in Chinese medicine. So basically, how we go about figuring out what a person needs. And we do that not by looking at the pathogen, but instead by looking at how it affects the person that's sitting in front of me right now, that is my client. By the way, I use this word client rather than patient because those of you who are in the room that know this information, the root Latin word for client means
Sufferer.
client.
Oh, client.
She reversed it.
I was
It's a
gonna
trick.
the other way.
One who listens. Client means one who listens. Patient is derived from the Latin for
Suffer.
sufferer. We don't want our people to suffer here. We want them to listen and to do good things with that information. So we look at what is presenting in the person in front of us. A wind cold invasion, by the way, person who has a wind cold, they're gonna be cold. They're gonna feel like they wanna put on extra layers, extra blankets, and they're not gonna wanna be anywhere near the air conditioning vent or a fan. They're just gonna tend to want to move away from that and to just have a little bit of a distaste for it. So that's a wind cold. What do you think a person with toxic heat might look like?
Coughing?
Sweaty.
Yeah, that's gonna be number one. It's like they're gonna be wanting to rip their clothes off. They're so hot, right? Like think of the bug that you get in the middle of the summer where you're just like, oh my God, I'm dripping with sweat and I'm in Florida and it's just hot. Okay, so you have intuitive understanding of these things. Damp, cold in the lung. Dampness is gonna be things like phlegm. And it's gonna be deep in the lung, not just in the sinuses, it's gonna be more in the lung. Xiaoyang syndrome, this is a little bit more complex, but the primary presentation of Xiaoyang syndrome is alternating chills and fever. So it goes back and forth. damp heat affecting the lungs, so now we have the heat and the dampness, the phlegm. Toxic stagnation, it sounds a bit more severe, right? Toxic stagnation sounds more severe than just wind cold, and it is. Things aren't moving. Not only is there this toxicity, most likely heat, but there's also stagnation, so it's stuck, very difficult to move, and that's where the very physical modalities are very beneficial because they move these kinds of things right here. Closed interior and abandoned exterior is extremely serious. This is like a death's door kind of thing. And then, so these are the active phases. And then after that, we have recovery phase. So I want you to understand this nature of Chinese medicine and how we move through the phases together. It isn't just a, here, take this antibiotic and you'll be fine, which is rarely the case even in Western medicine. All sorts of other weird things happen. But it goes through the full recovery, and the reason for that is because we want to be healthier at the end of this experience than we were at the beginning. We want to specifically be more resilient. We want to be immune, right? Okay. So, the most important aspect of a healthy immune system and prevention is healthy energy. So I want to talk about, you all know the common sense things, right? Like, what are the things you're supposed to be doing right now other than
Washing your hands.
washing your hands, not getting together in groups of 51 or more? What else? Washing your hands.
Staying home if you don't feel well.
Don't touch your face.
Oh, don't touch your face.
Don't touch other people. basically.
Blowing your nose with a Kleenex, like.
No, don't talk into your elbow.
Not nice to meet ya. Yeah, it's transferred via bodily fluids. It's not airborne. So it's by bodily fluids. So
This virus is not airborne?
Right.
Interesting.
yeah, it's not airborne. It's fluid. So if you're standing right there and somebody sneezes and it hits your lip, you have been exposed. But that's not airborne. It's not transferred through the air. It's transferred through the spittle, through the bodily fluids. And that's why when this first came out a couple weeks ago, you might have seen the articles about, oh my God, everybody's sold out of these masks and like we have this national shortage, and the people who need those masks are healthcare workers that are, you know, like EMTs that are in the presence of somebody who's actively coughing at them right now. Those are the ones that really need it. The average person does not need this in general. And I'm really, like, if it makes you feel comfortable, then go for it. Do it. I went to Japan in September of last year, and like half the people there in Tokyo wore masks, which I thought was a, I don't want to get a bug kind of thing. And then I asked my tour guide leader why they wore masks. Does anybody know why like people in Japan or Tokyo might wear masks?
Particulate matter in the atmosphere is very high.
They have allergies. The people that wear the masks have allergies. And so they're both keeping themselves from getting the pollen, and they're also, you know, keeping from sneezing on other people. But mostly it has to do with protecting themselves from the pollen. It's not so much about other bugs. So things that you can do to keep your stress level down and your energy up are, number one, be aware of when you watch the news, when you expose yourself to this. Please release all judgment in what I'm about to tell you next, which is that I have not owned a television for, I guess it's like 25 years now, and I don't watch television. The only time I'm ever really exposed to it is when I go to the gym, which means that I get my information mostly from reading it. And because of that, I have a very different relationship. For one thing, I don't know, it was at the beginning of last year that I joined a gym that had this like news blaring all of the time, and I was disgusted because it was so little information. I was really, really, like, I was really bothered by this, that in the hour that I was at the gym, I heard the same 6 things over and over, and like, there wasn't a way to turn the television off, and I ended up changing gyms. Because I'm like, this is a waste of my brain cells, and I'm offended, and I have more important things to do with my brain cells than to hear somebody say the same 6 things over and over. So just be aware of what you're choosing into your energy field and how you're interacting with that. Focus on facts. So organizations like the CDC and the World Health Organizations are going to be good quality information. Even today, someone sent me a text message that looked really good about the coronavirus because they knew I was putting this presentation on. And it turned out, fortunately, they fact-checked the message, and it turned out to not be a legitimate message. So, just make sure you're using things like Snopes.com, you're fact-checking the information that you're getting, because there's a lot of weird information out there all the time. So you just want to make sure that you're getting facts. Focus on the overall picture, not just the drama. Remember Hurricane Irma was one of the times that I did end up watching television because I was staying with a relative and they had the television on all the time, and I ended up evacuating to another apartment. Fortunately, we were staying in a place where there was another apartment that I could go to. But it was just the same thing over and over, and it wasn't information, it was sensationalism. And it was very stressful, it was not healthy. And it was on all of the time, right? It's like, oh, we're all gonna die, you're screwed. Like, I wanted the information of where the storm was and how likely it was to affect, but I did not need somebody constantly telling me that I was gonna die and that I made a horrible choice to be with my relative rather than evacuating the state. So yes, it's true that people with compromised immune or respiratory systems are at risk for more serious illness and even death. So we're just going to observe that, we're going to be with that, we're going to acknowledge that, we're going to have the courage to accept that information and understand it. But the vast majority of people who get this virus do not and will not have severe symptoms. In fact, the reason that this is such a big thing, the reason this virus has gotten so popular is because the symptoms are so mild. If they were more severe, then we would put the kibosh on it and nobody would get it, because we're really good at that. We're really, really good at that. The problem is that it's so mild that many people don't even know that they have it. And so then it gets transmitted because people just don't even know that they have it. Well, that doesn't sound like a terribly scary thing, does it? That sounds like maybe even less scary than regular bugs that we're exposed to all the time. And by the way, like we talked about, hand washing is very important and very, very useful. Know that there are more bacteria on the back of your hand than there are, do you know the rest of it?
In your mouth.
People on the planet.
Jeez.
Wow.
So whatever thoughts you have about there being such a thing as a sterile environment, there are not. There are more bacteria on the back of your hand than there are people on the planet.
Let me get out my essential oils.
Just to start picking.
Right?
Oh,
Bacteria.
killing us.
Number 4, be aware of the historical precedents. There have been other viral outbreaks in the past. There were lots of fears during those times. By the way, if you want to know a really good way to tank your immune system, what is it?
Be afraid.
Fear!
Be
Oh,
very
yeah.
afraid.
Yeah, if you just want to
Movies.
short circuit that immune
Yeah.
system, like think about a time that you were super stressed out. Maybe there was something so intense going on that you were really afraid of what was going to happen next. Maybe this is loss of a loved one or loss of a relationship. Were you very resilient at that time?
Every year at finals at Christmas. Every year.
Yeah, that's a sucky one.
Finals and Christmas. And go home with family.
Yay.
Every year, I would say. Every year.
Lousy.
What a recipe.
Lousy. So she actually had it. Did your family make you stressed? Okay. So
On top of Christmas stress, on top of family stress, then there's also finals.
Yeah.
Studying and all that. I was sick every year.
So anybody know anybody that's had shingles? When does shingles tend to hit?
When you're stressed.
At the worst possible time, when life is otherwise not awesome. When really bad things have happened, when you're the most stressed out that you have ever been, then you get a horribly, horribly, horribly itchy and painful skin issue on top of it. It's under your skin, right? There's reasons that we use these phrases like, oh, But
Under
it's
your skin.
yeah. There's truth in our language, and it's useful to observe these things. Okay, so number 5, keep your anxiety and stress low, because anxiety and stress lowers the immune system. You can use energy techniques on whatever is scaring you. For those of you who have been to an energy evolution course, Neigong is a really, really great way to just break that stuff up. And Neigong it's a very complex, rich, and deep
Powerful.
and powerful technique, and incredibly simple to do. It's just tapping your thumb and your forefinger together. By doing this, you're connecting with 4 different types of chi simultaneously. And so if you are feeling fear, then you can focus on releasing the fear, right? Just letting go of the fear. And you do this until that has passed. It is not psychological, and it is not affirmations. This is actually an energetic, electrical communication with the body. It's the way to amp the signal that you're sending to the body. And then strengthen and support your immune system. So this past weekend, I was in a fantastic training. And one of the reasons that it was so fantastic was that akin to a time in my life when I was first introduced to Standard Process, which is the whole food supplement line that I use now, they had the whole back of their room set up with all sorts of supplements, and it was fantastic. And we could take them, and we could taste them, and we could know what they look and feel like, and so I'm gonna offer that opportunity to you tonight too. So some of the things that are on this sheet are things that I'm gonna pass around. For those of you who are my clients, please test yourself and see if it's the right thing for you. For those of you who are not my clients, do as you will. Does everybody have their water?
Mine's gone, I gotta get more.
Okay. So the first thing that we're gonna pass around is a homeopathic silver. So this is not colloidal silver. This is extremely minute particles of silver. And silver is one of the best antimicrobial, antiviral, antibacterial substances out there. So you're gonna get a little spoon. You can just maybe a paper towel with it or something, because the spoons are a little small. So you can just take a little hit of this silver. We'll do that one first, and we'll give your body a little bit of time to absorb it. So that is the second thing that you'll see on your sheet here. Phil, do you have a handout?
Yeah, I do.
No, do you have this?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we'll be good. The first one that you'll see on the sheet, which we'll take in a moment after you have a moment to absorb it. Yeah. It's just you. You were
what's
the
the
only
difference?
one who was- You were on time.
What's the difference between colloidal silver and the?
The size of the particles, so homeopathics are like infinitesimally small. They are so small that it is ridiculous that they even work, and yet they're incredibly powerful. The philosophy of homeopathy is that it is such a slight signal that is sent to the body that it helps to either draw out the pathogens, is one way to say it, or to adjust the frequency, to resonate with the frequency of whatever the imbalance is with the body. So it's teensy tiny. It's like, I don't know the ratio between colloidal silver and homeopathic. I would guess that it's like a millionth smaller. So it's very different, right? Like colloidal silver can get stuck in your cells, and it can cause metal toxicity, and it can turn you blue. So you don't ever want to take colloidal silver internally, because that's a problem long term. You're here for safety, right? You obviously have the look that you didn't really want to hear that, or that you heard something different recently, but I want you to know safety. There's a, so I lived in Colorado for about a decade, and there's a supplement store there called Wild Oats. You ever heard of this store? Okay, so the people who own Wild Oats refused to carry colloidal silver because that son had passed away from an overdose of it. So Yeah, it got very popular because it works as an antiviral, as an antimicrobial, but it's actually metal that's getting stuck in your cells. So like using it a lot long term is very unhealthy. Homeopathy is totally different.
I had a blue client.
You have a blue client?
I had a client who was blue because she took so much silver.
Where is
She looked like she was the color of a Smurf, and
Yeah.
without exaggeration.
Wow.
I know, I've seen the videos of it. I have never seen one in person though.
Oh yeah.
Hit me up, sister.
Avatar from Blade.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Maybe
Exactly.
she was.
And if they're super small particles?
Yeah, nano silver, what is that?
You're taking in much less.
Yeah, like
This-
literally like a million. So it's drawing it out of your body. Actually, homeopathic silver we use to draw out colloidal silver from the body. I know, it gets weird. Moving on, it's outside the scope of our time together tonight. Because I want to give you this list of things that you can do here and now. INF Fighter is a antiviral. It's made of golden seal, echinacea, and chaparral, which by the way is also one of our treatments for leaky gut because it helps to rebuild the mucosal lining in the gut. So there is a gut-brain axis. I'm going to give them, they need to have about 10 minutes before they can take that. Calcium lactate. So I have general recommended dosages on here. Those of you who are clients of mine know that we always test you for the amounts that you need. Calcium lactate is a highly absorbable form of calcium in a 5-to-1 ratio with magnesium. This is necessary because otherwise your body will not absorb it. So it has to be in this ratio. By the way, this is not a dairy product, and calcium is necessary to fight fevers, although my experience clinically is that some of the people that I'm seeing have extremely low temperatures, like 96.6. Congoplex. This is made of carrots, alfalfa, mushrooms, echinacea, and calcium lactate, and it is a quick inflammation reducer. And it's also available and chewable for kids. So you're gonna get the opportunity, if you choose to participate, to take some calcium lactate, and you're also gonna get the opportunity to take some chewable Congoplex. So you can chew it. I would recommend you chew it. It actually works better if you chew it. And it's raspberry flavored.
Can we make the Cardio Plus raspberry flavor, please?
Nope. Sorry. They have Catalin and they have Congoplex as chewable, but that's it. Liposomal C. So this is a highly absorbable form of C, and I want to be clear about this. Liposomal C is a safe, effective, you can use it long-term form of vitamin C. Note that long-term use of ascorbic acid, which is one of the forms of vitamin C, like the emergency packets you get in the store, look, that's fine to do short-term, but only short-term. If you do that long-term, not yet. Stop it. Don't do it. There's not a person on the planet that's gonna not take something and put in their hands right now. And the homeopathics, they have to have at least 10 minutes to absorb into your system. Thank you very much for being Johnny on the spot. So you're looking at about 6 weeks is about the longest that you want to take those emergency packets, because you will wind up with nutrient deficiencies, other nutrient deficiencies as a result of taking ascorbic acid long term. But short term, it's fine. If I start to feel, if I'm traveling and I don't have all my kit with me, and I start to feel a little funny, then you betcha the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to the grocery store, I'm gonna get those little packets of emergency, because they are fantastic and they are yummy. Prosymbiotic, so this is a broad spectrum probiotic, and the reason for this is because the integrity of the intestinal immune system, which is also called GALT, the gut-associated lymphatic tissue, must be prioritized as it contains far more immune-related cells than any other location in the body. Almost always when I see people get sick right before they got their bug, whatever it is, bacteria, fungus, virus, parasite, their gut was a little bit off. So we have to address the gut in order to keep things regulated. If you have SIBO, if you have small intestine bacterial overgrowth, if you tend to have bloating that gets worse at night, you're not a candidate for taking a probiotic. Please don't do it. You have too much bacteria in your gut already, and this is not going to be your friend. It's going to make things worse. Drenamine and or cataplex ACP, this is because a strong adrenal response is needed, as this is an early defense to infection. One of the best choices for this is cataplex ACP because it supports a healthy mucosal membrane barrier and adrenal function. You know that feeling right when you're getting sick where you're like, I don't know why, but I just kind of feel like going home tonight and doing nothing. Malaise, yeah. And it's really early on and nothing else is wrong, and nothing else is going on. That is when your immune system is asking your adrenal glands to release a little bit more cortisol. And your adrenal glands are like, yes, I'm on it. Also, everybody else don't do anything. This is my time. So body is gonna go, I just kind of feel right? That kind of drowsiness, that's what's happening right there. When you feel that, the instant that you feel that, that is the time to hit up your Drenamine or your cataplex ACP. And then finally, pneumonia prevention formula number 1. This is a Chinese herbal tea to strengthen the immune system. Let's see where we are here. We talked about these things already, the common sense steps. Wash your hands, wipe down high traffic areas, do the elbow bump, or this bump instead of shaking hands. And if you're not feeling good, stay home. Mostly because you need to rest in order to feel better. And it's totally okay to take a day and just rest. You have permission to do this. I got a little bit off. But so it matters where things start, right? We want to know what happened. Why do we have a sudden new virus? Why is this a thing? There's a lot of different theories, but where it happened was it was linked to a seafood market in Wuhan, China. However, a study that came out on January 25th notes that the individual with the first reported case became ill on December 1st, 2019 and had no link to the seafood market. So we're still kind of trying to figure it out. There's some other theories out there that honestly I'm not expert in. So I'm not going to report on those, possibly because I don't watch the news. But instead, we want to look at the facts. We want to look at what we're actually seeing. The majority of infections are mild. 81% of them are flu-like, stay at home. Okay, and also let's look at the bias of the sample size that we're looking at. So the information that we are looking at are reported cases of COVID-19. Reported cases of COVID-19. Do you know how much it costs to have your case reported as COVID-19?
A lot.
About $3,500. And insurance might pay up to as much as $2,000 of it, depending on the kind of insurance you got. But it's expensive. So it is a highly contagious, pretty mild flu bug that's very expensive to have diagnosed as COVID-19, and people are being advised generally to stay home if they get sick. How accurate do you think our reporting of COVID-19 is? Okay, so let's observe that we are likely looking at a much, much, much smaller sample size than what is actually existing. Agreed?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it's expensive to report, it's not very dangerous or lethal, and people are being advised really kind of not to report it, or being advised